thinking smartly about the way that we use our resources, use our money. And, you know, in 2009, 40 of the wealthiest families in America pledged to give away half of their wealth to charity. Go someplace else in the world and ask the 40th wealthiest families to give away half their wealth. They'll look at you like you got 6 heads. This is an American phenomenon. We take care of our own. We always have. It is not the government's responsibility. It is our responsibility as citizens.
Well, that was renowned pediatric neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson speaking about taking care of each other in America. And he has recently challenged the Obama administration on what he calls the crisis with our families. These latest numbers from Pew Research may help you understand why. In 2011, the U.S. marriage rate hit an all-time low of 51%. In 2010, only 63% of children lived in a household with 2 parents. That is down from 82% in 1970. And about 41% of families headed by single mothers live below the poverty line, compared to 9% of married 2-parent families. But Dr. Carson is calling for not for more federal handouts. He actually has a different idea. And boy, has he been skewered for some of his ideas. Dr. Ben Carson joins us live now from Baltimore, Maryland. Again, he is the Pediatric Neurosurgery Division Director at Johns Hopkins Hospital. Dr. Carson, great to have you on. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So these are just some of the problems that we're facing in this country that you've spoken out about many times. You believe we have, to some extent in some of our towns, a culture of victimization, which I want to get to in 1 second with you. But because of your message on that issue and some others, some of which you've been critical of the president on, some of which not so much, boy, have you been attacked. A token, you've been called, an Oreo, please pardon me for repeating these to you. Most recently, a commentator on a rival network said you've been embraced because you're smart and helpful in assuaging white people's guilt, and went on to say that you're enjoying the GOP's version of affirmative action because then people will get to put a bumper sticker on their car saying, "How can I be racist? I would have voted for Dr. Carson." Your thoughts on the attacks on you?
Well, you know, if you don't have anything useful to say, then you attack people. You know, if you feel that your house of cards has been discovered and is starting to come unraveled, you become very desperate. You know, intelligent people tend to talk about the facts. They don't sit around and call each other names. That's what you can find on a third-grade playground. And this is something that we need to move beyond in this country. And let's have a real discussion about the real facts. If somebody disagrees, let's talk about why they disagree. Let's talk about the pros and cons. Let's see if we can find some accommodation. But to sit around and act like third graders is non-productive.
So quick to dismiss some of your ideas because they're coming from a man who happens to be a black man. And Condoleezza Rice actually was on the Fox News channel a couple of years ago speaking to our own Sean Hannity, and she said, because she was subjected to some of this, if you look at a black person, you say that person has to think in a particular way, I don't care if you're white or black, if you say that, then you've got a prejudice. Then you are the one with the prejudice. Do you think that the people who just dismiss you as a token have a prejudice of their own?
Oh, well, there's no question. They feel that if you look a certain way, then you have to stay on the plantation. You know, I've heard some people refer to me as an Uncle Tom. Well, obviously, they don't know what an Uncle Tom is because they need to read Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin. You'll see that he was very, very subservient, kind of go-along to get along type person. Obviously, that's not what I'm doing. And what the left frequently does, and some aspects of the right too, is they try to make life so unpleasant for anybody who disagrees with them that people will keep silent. And I know that it's working because so many people come up to me and say, thank you for having the courage to express this. This is the same way I feel. But most people won't speak up. I'm trying to get people to speak up because, you know, this country is changing into something else. And we need to make sure that we really want it to change into something else and not just end up there and ask ourselves, how do we get there?
And I know that, I mean, most people who get attacked in this country, whether it's, you know, cable news people or doctors or what have you, they get attacked because they're considered a threat. I mean, if you were not effective in your message, they would dismiss you. But you have been a very effective messenger of the ideals that you have. And one of them has been, as I mentioned, this belief that in this country we are more and more veering toward viewing ourselves or our own bad luck or our own bad decisions as victims. It's not our fault. We're just victims, and we need to blame somebody else for it, and then we need somebody else to help us out of this situation.
And that's correct. And as I've said many times, and by the way, I should mention the things that I've been talking about are things that I've been talking about for 20 years. So people who want to call me names now, they need to go back and look at what I was saying when they were saying that I was a wonderful person and a hero, because they didn't know, or they thought that I agreed with them. But the fact of the matter is, the whole problem is that we've allowed certain segments to divide our society up and to make us all into enemies. And of course, a house divided against itself cannot stand, but they derive their power from division. They derive their relevance from division. And I'm very much hoping that the American people will actually wake up and see who the real problem is.
Mm-hmm. On the subject of these single-parent families and how problematic they have proven to our children, to our literacy rates and so on, you've been outspoken from Detroit. You're a child of a single mother who helped raise you and helped put you through, or encouraged you to go to school. You wound up at Yale. But you've been wanting folks to speak honestly about what is happening in our inner cities in particular, family implosion. Yes. Why is this not, O'Reilly's been talking about this a little bit, but why is this not discussed more?
Because it's become politically incorrect to do so. Every lifestyle is now supposed to be equivalent. We're doing basically the same things that the Romans did before the collapse of the Roman Empire, when the great wise men with their long white beards would wax eloquently on every subject, and nothing was right, nothing was wrong, everything was relative, and they kind of lost their identity, and they went right down the tubes. And believe me, if anybody thinks that we're moving upward through all of this victimization and division, they really need to examine their ability to analyze things.
Do you think that we need our president to be more active, more vocal on this subject? I know, having grown up in Detroit, you look at that city, but 80% of Detroit children raised in single-parent homes. There's a 49% adult illiteracy rate. This is quoting from the Associated Press. Studies from Columbia, Harvard, and Princeton have found a crisis among inner-city black males. Half of 20-something black men unemployed. Single parenthood, the #1 indicator of poverty. Do we need our president to focus on this to try to inspire folks to make different choices?
Yes. We need our president, but we need everybody to focus on it, because we need to recognize as a society, for every one of those young people that we keep from going down that path of self-destruction, that's one less person we have to be afraid of, protect our families from, one less person we have to pay for in the penal system or the welfare system, one more tax-paying productive member of society who can discover a new energy source.
How do you do it?
We have to place the resources there in the beginning. For instance, with Carson Scholars Fund, we put reading rooms in all over the country, particularly targeting Title I schools, where a lot of the kids come from homes with no books. They go to a school with no library, and they're the ones who wind up dropping out. They never develop that love of reading, which then fosters a much better impression of who you are and what you can do educationally.
With a mom who had a lot going against her, how did she inspire you to lead a different life?
Well, she made me read books. I didn't want to, but there are parental discretions which allow you to force children to do things. And interestingly enough, after a while, I didn't mind reading those books at all, because we were desperately poor, but between the covers of those books, I could go any place, I could be anybody, could do anything. And I started reading about people of accomplishment, and it became clear to me that the person who has the most to do with what happens to you is you. It's not the environment, it's not somebody else. And while everybody else around me was sitting there and complaining and pointing at other people, I was sitting there and empowering myself by gaining knowledge and understanding of the world around me.
I heard you say on Fox not long ago that your mother used to make you guys read, a poem by Mamie White Miller called Yourself to Blame. So I pulled this poem. It's short. I hope the viewers will indulge me. I know you probably know it by heart, but here it is. If things go bad for you and make you a bit ashamed, often you'll find out that you have yourself to blame. Swiftly we ran to mischief, and then the bad luck came. Why do we fault others? We have ourselves to blame. Whatever happens to us, here are the words we say. Had it not been for so-and-so, things wouldn't have gone that way. And if you are short of friends, I'll tell you what to do. Make an examination. You'll find the faults in you. You're the captain of your ship, so agree with the same. If you travel downward, you have yourself to blame. What does that mean to you?
I can hear those words every time I made an excuse. Believe me, I heard that point. And, you know, it meant that my mother was not going to accept excuses from me or from my brother. So we had to stop looking for excuses, and we had to start looking for solutions. And we learned relatively early in life how to solve problems and how not to go around whining and complaining. And, you know, that has been something that has characterized my life, you know, throughout my professional career. You know, when people have said, you know, this can't be done, or no one's ever done this before, you know, instead of saying, oh, okay, well, I guess I can't do that, I started looking for ways to make it work, ways that maybe someone else hasn't thought of. And that's what we need to start doing as a nation. We need to develop, once again, that can-do attitude as opposed to that what can you do for me attitude. That is destroying our nation. That is destroying the ideal of America. And I particularly feel for those who are the downtrodden in our society, because we have the intellectually elite who sit there and basically try to keep them in that position so they can continue to be the intellectually elite by giving them stuff and making sure, by saying the right things but not doing the right things. This is not useful. And I want people to wake up. Just wake up, please, and don't allow them to pull this sham on you and act like they're your friends.
This is a man, speaking of can-do attitude, who separated conjoined twins. It takes a lot to get to Johns Hopkins University, never mind the director of neurosurgery pediatric. Dr. Carson, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being here, sir.